This notion that the Jews control everything, the banks, the media, first, it's not true. Jews...
It's not, actually. I did some research on this, and I looked up who controls the banks, everyone. It's the Irish. It's true. We've been sleeping on this conspiracy theory the whole time, but it doesn't matter if it's Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, CME Group, SoFi, John Hancock, Invesco, SIBO, Wells Fargo, Deutsche Bank, all of them. The Irish. It was the Irish all along. Yes, it's true. Did you know the majority of police in New York are Irish? Did you know the current president of the United States is Irish? Did you know that Barack Obama is part Irish? Did you know this? It's all true. Every part of it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager. This is Fireside Chat number 262. I rehearsed that in advance, and that's how I got it right.
That's very sad.
Thing I can say, I think that, and I wrote my column this week on this subject because I've also touched on the issue of Candace Owens, who is a friend of Kanye West and has been criticized for not defending his comments, which he didn't, but defending him and not condemning the comments. And I have some thoughts on all of that. But first, let me just say a very important thing. I want to read to you from parts of my column. I very, very rarely say that someone or something is anti-Semitic. I'm very careful. I wish people were careful about the whole list.
Because you kind of call any single person who criticizes Israel as being anti-Semitic.
Racist, homophobic, Islamophobic, bigoted, xenophobic. I wish people were careful. I'll tell you why. Not only so that we don't smear people who don't deserve the label, but so that we don't cheapen the label. If you
this JP to this, well, hey, don't worry. We're jumping not only from this, but to someone even better. It's all going to be wrapped up. Yes, there's a wonderful thing going on the right. If you didn't already know, obviously, probably most of you know that Ye has been dropping some incredibly intense anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. He was a pretty intense kind of like, what the fuck did you just say person for a long time now. I think people kind of, I don't know, really, like when he was saying all that shit about how blacks slavery was a choice thing, like I love Hitler, that should have been the alarm bells in most people's brains. But it went on for so long. So we got to this point now where we're in this really weird position for conservatives, because conservatives on one end want to both defend Candace Owens and embrace Ye, especially because Tucker Carlson was using Ye again in this whole White Lives Matter thing. I've never seen Tucker Carlson happier. I've never seen a bigger smile on his face when he got to look at, Ye just square in the eyes and then hear Ye say, like, oh, sorry, he asked Ye, he's like, now why did you say White Lives Matter? And then he responds, because they do. And then you see Tucker Carlson's face, and it goes from like, thank you. I've been waiting to hear someone say it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I could say anti-Semitic things.
So that moved on, obviously, into this new phase that we're in, where now, because of the monologue of Dave Chappelle that took place on Saturday Night Live, conservatives are further getting into a difficult position where they're like, well, we're not entirely sure how we should read this. There were some jokes that were certainly what people would describe as furthering anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Jewish people. At the same time, he did open his entire routine by pulling out a piece of paper and saying that I strongly condemn anti-Semitism in all its forms. So there's that as well. We aren't the cancel culture crowd. We're not the joke cancel crowd. We like I don't know how we navigate this whole thing. It's tricky.
Too many
it's
people
like there's
racist,
a lot of things happening.
Is exactly what has happened. The term doesn't mean anything anymore, and the truth is, it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's true about any term, and that's not good for the cause of fighting bad things. I've written a book on anti-Semitism. I have fought anti-Semitism my whole life as a Jew and as an individual who just hates evil. but I very rarely use the term unless it's deserved. Kanye West's or Ye's words, I don't know if he is an anti-Semite, nor do I find that an important discussion. Pretty much, it's difficult to label a human being something without knowing a lot about them. But it doesn't matter. What matters is what he said, and the words were...
Kanye had lost it back when he went on a Roblox adventure with Lil Pump.
Oh, thank you. I'll cue this up for later.
Anti-Semitic. So let me just tell you, this notion that the Jews control everything, the banks, the media, the education, I don't know, whatever else he had in mind. First, it's not true. Jews...
It's not, actually. I did some research on this, and I looked up who controls the banks, everyone. And someone sent me this meme, but it's not actually the Jews. It's the Irish. It's true. We've been sleeping on this conspiracy theory the whole time, but it doesn't matter if it's Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, CME Group, SoFi, John Hancock, Invesco, SIBO, Wells Fargo, Deutsche Bank, all of them. The Irish. It was the Irish all along. Yes, it's true. Did you know the majority of police in New York are Irish? Did you know the current president of the United States is Irish? Did you know that Barack Obama is part Irish? Did you know this? It's all true. Every part of it. We gotta play some music. Hold on. 'Twas the Irish all along. You're part Irish? Well, you have to understand, you have to renounce Irish supremacy. All of you have to renounce Irish supremacy. Do it now. Do it now. Save yourselves. Renounce Irish supremacy. Please. Now, if you don't understand why this is an amazing meme, not that I invented it, I didn't. This is a huge thing on the internet, by the way. There is massive sections of the internet that are obsessed with the Irish conspiracy theory. It, quote, the Irish question. As in, why is it that so many presidents have been Irish? Why is it that so many banks are controlled by the Irish? Why is it that the Irish have had so many influences of power? Why are there so many Irish Americans in America? Holy shit, it's all starting to make sense. Like, you realize how silly it is when you apply the same conspiracy theory that is often thrust upon the Jewish people. Because guess what? When it comes to news media, the Jewish people do not control the majority of news media. They don't control MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, all that. No, they don't. And so when you apply the same kind of rule, where all of a sudden it's like, well, what about the Irish question? What about the Irish question? You know, kind of shit. Like, all of a sudden the whole thing's like, oh yeah, this is ridiculous. It doesn't matter that they all happen to be Irish, and like, it's billionaires. Billionaires are the problem. It's not the weird arbitrary thing we assign to something that, again, I mean, these are things that humans have concocted and construed. It doesn't matter if you believe that you happen to be, part of a sacred lineage of individuals, or you happen to be part of the Irish, or whatever your thing is. This is a very weird way to view the world. It's a super fucked up way to suddenly think like, well, what do we got here? I don't know. I think we're starting to find out. You know, no one's asking these questions. How many of Joe Rogan's guests over the last year were Irish? Have you worked out the numbers versus how many people in the population are Irish? Have you done the math on that? You should. Probably should. Everyone should.
Jews are disproportionately represented in virtually every field. That's true. But Jews are disproportionately represented.
You know, the president right now.
Nobel Prize winners in medicine. Does anybody?
Joe Rogan's Irish. Just gonna say, biggest podcast in the world, 11 million viewers, Irish. Everything about that? I'm just asking questions, you know?
They walk around saying, Jews control medicine? Nobody ever says that, do they? Jews are wildly disproportionately represented among Nobel Prize winners who have helped the world get healthier. But somehow or other, the people who don't like Jews for whatever reason never comment on that part. Now, I don't comment on either, but I just want you to know that if you're going to be honest, you might as well say, well, Jews are disproportionate.
I don't know if you've seen this.
We know who controls the institutions, media, banks, courts, and the government. Who does? It's the Jews.
What will we do with the drunken sailor? What will we do with the drunken sailor? What will we do with the drunken sailor early in the morning?
We know.
No one explains it. No one wants to ask it either, you know? No one wants to ask the deep questions. But, like, jokes aside, memes aside, all of a sudden, like, it just puts everything into focus. You're like, oh yeah, that's silly. Yeah, the correlation causation thing, that ain't it. This is not some Irish conspiracy. There is not like a cabal of Irish people who meet once a year. It's like, hey laddie, welcome to the convention, you know, and then everyone sits down and it's like, oh, who are we going to arrest today? You know, kind of shit like that. No, that doesn't happen. It's not, to think that would be absurd. Like you would be like, that's fun, that's cartoony, but like, no, that's not real. You know, it's not a real thing. But then why is it acceptable to do to the Jews? Because it's the exact same principles. It's like, they happen to have a representation proportional to the amount of people who are Jewish in America in Hollywood, and that has historical precedent and reasons. It's not as if they controlled the media itself, especially not the news media. Overwhelmingly, the news media itself is not controlled by Jewish people, it's controlled by Irish people. But again, that doesn't say anything about either group. It's not as if these are part of deep-seated conspiracies. It actually makes a lot more sense to explain it because they were oppressed historically, both groups, both Jewish people and Irish people, in the history of the Americas. And at certain points in history, Jewish people were having trouble getting into certain fields, owning property, stuff like that. And so working in Hollywood was something in which they were capable of doing and passing down through family to family. This has nothing to do with a deep-seated conspiracy. This is not, or world domination or power or control. The whole thing is so utterly and completely silly if you start looking at it from the Irish lens, you know. But for some reason, anti-Semites accept it in other directions. I want to hear thoughts about Candace. You don't even get to the thoughts about Candace Owens? Oh my god, clickbait of the highest order. Fuck you. Fuck you. Teach me about debt.
When you buy something with cash, you exchange money for the item and the transaction is complete.
Hell
but when
yeah.
you buy something on credit,
Unless you borrow it from a loan shark, then they take your thumbs.
or a loan, you're promising to pay for it later, probably with interest. Now you've got the item and debt. Financial debt is owing money to somebody who agreed to give it to you today with your promise to return it in the future.
Oh, no thanks.
By the way, that was called the Bank of Auto. This is the PragerU indoctrination propaganda that's intended specifically, I think, for kind of the high school demographic. It's like maybe like young adults will say that. It's not quite like we read you storybooks and teach you about how John Adams was super based. It's more like we're going to do it from this angle.
I don't want to owe anybody money. That sounds terrible.
Well, debt is like a fire. If you're responsible and strategic, it can work for you. But if it gets out of hand, then you're in trouble. Think about the doctor who took out a student loan to go to medical school.
Right.
He couldn't have learned those skills and gotten that degree without taking on some debt.
Unless it was free.
Clean up your room.
Like college, university. Unless they didn't have to pay, then they wouldn't have to take any debt. No student debt at all. It would actually fix that problem.
But now he owns his own
Scotty K, thank you for the prime. I appreciate you.
practice, helps many lives, and employs dozens of people. If you use debt to invest in your future, it can be a good thing.
What if I pay for my designer clothes every weekend with my credit card?
Then, you'll not only have to pay back the cost of those outfits,
And you're a big dumb woman. You be shopping. Women be shopping, you know? Ugh, it's the worst too. You could have gone to medical school. Could have been a doctor, sweetie. Instead, look at you, shopping like the trad wife you should be.
but also the fees and interest from the credit card company. That debt can build up and become dangerous, especially if you can't afford to pay it all back. So, what kinds of debt are there, and how can we be responsible with it?
Hash course.
There are many kinds of debt that affect the average person.
So, which ones should I watch out for?
The most common type is consumer debt, and most of this debt is accumulated with credit cards.
To be fair, I think that was basically an interview where they're asking about the rest of the PragerU staff.
The most common type is consumer debt, and most of this debt is accumulated with credit cards. When you use a credit card, the credit card company pays the business first, and then they send you a monthly bill. If you pay the total bill within 30 days, you won't have accumulated any debt. Sweet. But if you don't pay the total within 30 days, then interest gets added to your debt. The interest rate on a credit card could equal about 25% per year, where a $500 purchase could become $625 just a year later. Credit cards usually have a maximum charge amount. That's called a credit limit. Over half of Americans now have a maxed out credit card. That's a lot of debt. The fastest growing type of debt is student loan debt. Student loans allow you to pay for college expenses and
This is so wild because this is from PragerU. So what you're witnessing right now is them basically saying, this is fucking awesome. Like this is the best. Yeah, check this out. Half the country or more owes credit card debt and they've maxed out their credit cards. This is, oh, it's so beautiful because they have to pay 20 to 25% interest on it. So they're fucked. And the best part is it's in perpetuity. It's just going to continue to go on and on. I mean, they can declare bankruptcy, you know, sometimes, but there are exceptions. And there are ways that we can go after them after that. We can garnish their wages forever. That also works. Oh, let's just talk about fucking people who can go after them and call them insensibly for the rest of their lives to be able to track that debt down. This is so cool.
delay repaying the loan until after you leave school. Most loans are backed or first paid for by the federal government. Unlike other forms of debt, federal student loans can't be settled with bankruptcy, which is a legal claim people make when they can't pay their debt. In other words, there's no way to escape from paying it back. On the other hand, student loan debt can be considered good debt if you're using it to gain skills that will land you a more valuable.
This is wild. It's like, so don't get into debt because it could ruin you forever. Here's a picture of a house on fire so you understand the visual imagery. Yeah, but there's a good kind of debt, the best kind of debt, student debt, because then you can transform that student debt into wealth and riches and success. So that's the kind you should get. It's also the only kind that will always follow you. Yeah, you can't declare bankruptcy. No, you could try, but then you can reset. You'll have zero credit. You won't be able to ever take out a loan or do anything, not even get a credit card, but the debt will continue forever.
Valuable opportunity.
We can pass it on to your children. Yeah, if you fucked up and then you have kids, they're gonna have to take on that burden, as they say.
Than if you had not gone to that school. Unfortunately, many people discover too late that the job they get with their college degree doesn't pay enough to make the debt worth it.
I prefer the best kind of debt, when you take out a £20 million loan in 1835 so you can claim to have ended slave trade by paying off slave owners.
It's the best kind. Thank you, Sake Tanuki, for the 2 subs.
And some don't graduate at all, but they still have to pay off their student loans. Car loans allow you to purchase a car and pay off the debt with equal monthly payments over a few years. Banks and car dealerships offer these loans. Usually, they don't cover the whole price of the car, which means you need to have some cash as a down payment, or trade in the value of your old car towards the purchase price of a new one. A home loan is similar to a car loan, where you'll make a down payment and borrow the rest.
That down payment, upwards of 15 to 20% depending on the loan. Guess what? If you need to get a house in, what's the current city you live in? Do you live in San Francisco? Do you live in Chicago? Do you live in Boston? Do you live in Vancouver? Do you live in Montreal? Do you live in Toronto? Well, doesn't matter where you live. Those houses now, they cost at least about $1 million. That's where they start. So $200,000 is this part that you'll need.
The difference is that a car tends to depreciate, which means it loses value over time, while a home will generally appreciate or increase in value over time, which would make a home loan, also called a mortgage, a good investment. Even though a home may be the most expensive thing you will ever buy, costing many hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's an example of debt working for you. But beware.
This is so fucking, like, this has to appeal to PragerU, because the average person watching this is like, yeah, motherfuckers, I know every part of that. I can't afford it. I'm priced out of the game, okay? This is not something that the average fucking millennial or, heaven forbid, Gen Z is thinking and like, yeah, oh, if only I could crack the code. How does this one mortgage, you say? Credit card debt? Oof, all these adult terms, a little too complex to wrap my head around. No, I know what the down payment is. If I'm gonna live in the apartment I'm in this area, probably like $1.5 million in Vancouver right now for a fucking apartment. for an apartment? That's insane. This isn't even a massive apartment. It's a regular size apartment. That's unreasonable. I can't afford that. I'll never have fucking $300,000 just like, the nest egg is prepared. Now, sirs, here you are. I'll purchase my condo for over $1 million, you see. And it's like, well, okay, you can go to other areas. You can move out of town, go somewhere else, go up north, go to Squamish, Pemberton, anywhere else in British Columbia. That is true. The further you get away, it does get better. But that place catches up. Like every place you start moving away from the major cities now, they're all getting way more pricey than they ever were. Like everywhere. It's like it's not affordable for the average citizen. And so because of that, everyone gets priced out of the game. This whole thing just pushes it. Like there are friends I have who have played every step of this game properly. They took out a student loan. They went and they became engineers, and they've done every step of the game. They have gone out, they've gotten good paying jobs. They're slowly paying down their student loans, and they still don't have $200,000 waiting for them somewhere to just be able to get that loan. That's the thing. Like that amount of money is so insurmountable. Like put away $5,000 a year. Impressive, incredibly impressive. It's going to take you a long ass time to get to that stage. And so if you're lucky enough, people wait for their old relatives to die pretty much. Because outside of that, it's like, well, I guess if I got an inheritance, I can do this. That's a really dark system. That's pretty weird and fucked up. Where it's like, well, at that point, yes, as part of your betrothment, you'll be able to now afford a house. Yes, capitalism. It's worked out. Yeah, sorry about your loss. That one sucks. But hey, you might be able to possibly afford this place. Good job.
With both car loans
or inherit
and
a
home
house.
loans, if you don't keep up with the payments, the lending bank can and will take possession of the car or home and sell it to someone else to get.
And it's all like a game on PragerU. PragerU's just like, and it's so crazy. Don't be the bad ones. Be the good ones. Get the right loans.
Get their money back.
Take my car and my home? How can I be responsible with debt so that doesn't happen to me?
First,
That's when we get rid of the fucking government and cap style. No more debt. Everyone who owns everything forever. They'll never come after us. No more taxation without representation. Fuck that shit. The roads will stay maintained forever.
avoid bad debt by not spending more money than you have or more than you'll be able to pay back. Second,
sounds easy. You know, some people have kids, some people have unexpected events. You know, you're told by society in large part that we're not going to really give you sex ed, we're not going to provide you with contraceptives, we're not going to provide you, well, abortions are illegal in parts of America now, so good luck with that. So you got to take care of someone, and then yes, that starts to add up, and then it's very hard because you want to be a parent and also look after your kids, but that's also hard to fucking juggle, so how do you do this one? So you might saddle yourself up with some very expensive debt. You might need one of those, I don't know, cash for gold shits.
The worst part is that it incentivizes career choices. Doctors have to become plastic surgeons to pay off debt, which just fuels the anti-NHS arguments.
Sake, first, thank you. Second, yes, also true. It's like, I've heard people say, like, why is it that there are, like, a lot of plastic surgeons concentrated in certain areas? It's like, well, in America, under that privatized healthcare system, it makes you way more money to work in that field. Like, way more money. Fucking obscene amounts of money. You go to Beverly Hills, you work as a plastic surgeon.
if you do decide
Forget
to
about
buy,
it.
you don't always need debt to do it. Many things you can buy with debt, you can also buy with cash. If you're taking on debt for the sake of buying something that you will most likely use for only a short period of time, consider paying cash. After all, you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're still paying for something you don't even use anymore.
Great advice, PragerU. Thank you. No one's figured this out yet. Oh, I did want to say, by the way, just one final quirk on this whole thing with PragerU, Chappelle, Dave Chappelle, and the entire resurrection of the anti-Semitism. Also, tell your friends to Google Donald Trump, the President of the United States, when it comes to anti-Semitic comments. I'm not here to defend Dave Chappelle's anti-Semitic comments. I'm not here to defend Ye's anti-Semitic comments. I think they're really bad. Same way I wouldn't be wanting to defend Mel Gibson's anti-Semitic comments. Current person who's going to be running for the United States says a lot of really, really fucked up shit. A lot of fucked up shit. Yeah, there's incredibly high rates of anti-Semitic comments coming out of this mouthful right here. Gabla. And so, yes, condemn anti-Semitism in all its forms. Honestly, it's a horrifying and horrible thing, and it should be condemned. But also, President of the United States, and going to be running again for the President of the United States, is also very open and vocal and proud about this shit. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tal, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.